So here's a bit of bonus material, right? Um, you know, what, I'll move this off the side for a second. The other day, the poor students that were sitting here watching me do this, it was painful, right? Painful for sure. With all these different views, I started to show that, I, it's my personal preference, but I don't like we've already talked about getting rid of this, right? And I don't like these big H1s and so on. And, it says create new, why not use the name, right? Why not say create new patient, things like that. So, you can go in and manually make changes here. For example, on delete, right? Again, I can get rid of this. Now I have that coming from my class. You should say the entity name, right? Delete patient, for example. Are you sure you want to delete this? Now, that's something we still have to customize. We might be able to use the name of the patient, things like that. What's this H4 doing down here? Why not just say up here, delete patient, and then I can get rid of this and save some screen real estate, right? So poor students watched me make all these changes, making that an H2, getting rid of that, adding the word of the entity here and so on. It was a real pain in the rear end, right? Doing that in page over and over and over again. So that's what this is about, is we're going to, again, take advantage of a partial view to help save some work with much of the customization we have to do, right? So just a few notes. Only do this for controllers and views where the name for the controller is user friendly, because that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use that controller name, okay, and combined with action name. So if so far, like appointments, patient, doctors, those are all user friendly names, right? But we talked about the fact that in our models, sometimes if we don't have a good name for an entity that supports a many to many, we might just concatenate names together. So if you're ever in a situation where the name of the entity you're working with the controller, so the controller name is kind of weird, then you might not want to do this. But that's pretty rare, right? So usually we pass check note here, number one, we're good, right? Now we have to make sure the controller inherits from one of our two custom controllers, at least the cognizant controller, because that's the one that adds all this data into the view data, right? And then this works best if your controller's name is singular. Now it does work otherwise, right? But I did notice that, sometimes we just want to refer to the model name. And I did experiment. It is possible to get the actual name of the model, right? But there are some pitfalls with that too, because some of our views, like our create view by default, we don't actually instantiate a model object and pass it. So then you get an error, right? If you try to access the object to get its name, right? And so on and so forth with type of, things like that. So I figured using the controller name is a nice, easy thing. So, I taught you to do this, right? I taught you to pluralize controller names, just like we pluralize names of collections. But I'm reneging on that a little bit, right? Because it makes this work even better. So I'm going to take that out, okay? Now it'll prompt me to say, do you want to change the name of the class? And I do. So I'm going to do that for appointment, do that for doctor, and do that for patients. Get rid of these S's. Okay, now along with that, make sure your views, these folders, it won't be able to find it because remember it's a naming convention. So we have to rename these actual folders too. Oh, my Visual Studio is being slow. Come on. There we go. So I'll just take out these S's. Boy, I don't know why my system is so slow. Maybe it's because I've got so much going on. Anyway. Okay, so now a patient controller will find the patient views and it's happy. The only other thing I have to change is in layout. Okay, and this is noted in the copy paste file as well, because here I have the navigation links, right, to go to doctors and so on. So I have to change the controller name here, right? And if you had links you've added to your project anywhere else to the controllers, then you'll have to actually change them, right? Okay, so that's it. That's all I have to change to satisfy that requirement, right? So we bring this back. Works best if the controller name is singular, right? And so as I note here, change any links in the layout, but we've got that done. So we're all good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create yet another partial view in the shared folder. I'm going to add a view. Again, it'll be a partial view. I just decided to call it my view heading because this is mostly stuff that goes up in the very top in the heading section of the view. So underscore view heading as a partial view. right? Oh, oh, huh. I tried to put the extension on there because I had that in the copy paste file, I guess. Okay, so again, it's just an empty view. So what I'm going to do is just put a bit of code in here. Now remember, we've already taken care of the view data title, right? That happens right away in our cognizant controller, right? So as long as our controller inherits at least from the cognizant, if not the elephant controller, that's taken care of. So what I'm doing here is I'm checking, because remember in our view data, we have the action, right? So if it's details, then I want to have an H2 just saying the controller name. So like patient details, right? Else if the action name is index, then I'm going to have the controller name index, okay? And then here's my create link, create new, okay? The controller name, so patient, doctor, whatever, right? And that'll be what's at the header. Else, so if it's not details or index, okay, then I'll use the action name. So, create patient, delete doctor, whatever, right? So that'll be the customized H2 heading that I put at the top. So I'll just save that. And now I can go in to each of the, see, I shouldn't have closed them all. Now I do have to open up and deal with each of the actual views themselves, right? But I'll just do one. I won't make you watch me do all of them. Maybe I'll just come here to patient. I'm going to open each and every one of these views, right? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this partial in here and replace this other code, right? So I don't need my create new link. Okay, I don't need any of this. I don't need that. I'll just put in the partial, right? There we go. So that's simple. Coming to edit. I don't need the H4, the H1, any of that. I'll just put in that partial. Same with details. Now with details, right, there's this H4 down here, which we don't need. So I'm going to manually take that out as well, right? So there is still a little bit of customization, but there's nowhere near as much. Again, take out the H4 and remove this, put in the partial view instead. And here's where I might be awfully tempted, since we do have a model here, a patient, instead of delete this, I could put at model dot full name, right? Or not first name, full name. Okay. All right. So that's another little improvement. So yeah, there's still a tiny bit of customization to do here, but most of it is taken care of with my partial. Okay. All right. So let's just make sure this actually works. Now I would have to go around and do that for the others, but if I come here to patients, right? So you see it just says patient index, create new patient, right? But the link works, okay? I can create patient. Look at that. So it's working here. It says create patient. It doesn't just say create. So it reminds you there, right there in black and white at the top, okay? That, yeah, what am I creating? I'm creating a patient. Back to the patient list, okay? All this little customization is happening on all these different pages, right? Nicely for us and just coming from that, okay? And then here's our, do you want to delete that? You could have left it as delete this. It really doesn't matter, but that's kind of a nice thing to do if you have time, right? Okay, so I didn't get the other two done, but I'll do that before I post this solution. But I want to just quickly run through that. Any comments? Do you think that's worthwhile doing this with the partial view? I think students who sat and watched me manually change, 15 files yesterday would say, yeah, it was a little bit quicker. All right. Okay, well, I'll leave it off there.